Are you ready to get provoked? You're listening to Can I Live, a show created to excite, ignite, and expose. Let's tune in with your host, R.W. Jones.
Everyone in StreamYard World. Yes. So we are live on Facebook. Welcome everybody to the Housewives of America. This series is called The Midwives. And why I titled it The Midwives, because there was really no word to explain the position, the influence, and possibly overall the authority that resident services staff. So most of you guys know we cater to the public housing population, simply because we're a national tenants association, a public housing tenants association. And we're the only one in the nation. Now, I believe there were some efforts back in the day, but as it stands today, we are the only national public housing tenants association in the United States. So, that's kind of a big deal. I like my little sign my husband bought me. It's kind of a big deal, it's kind of a big deal. And so, but you want to know something, to be honest? People don't hear the voice of the poor. I mean, they just don't. When you broke, busted, and disgusted, ain't nobody listening to you. And so I realized that early on in my journey. For most of you who may not know, my journey, I started out as first a welfare mom of 4 kids. And I struggled to fight myself and claw myself out of the dependency on social services. And I remember, I don't know what it was that made me do this exercise, but I really literally wrote down all of the benefits that I got. So whether it was Medicaid, childcare, WIC, food stamps, whatever it was that I received, I remember writing all of the amounts down. And then I realized that based on what I made, I didn't have enough to support my own kids. And if anything happened, I didn't have enough to provide for my own kids. And that's really when I got real serious, because I thought, well, Lord, you gave me these children, definitely not that I would rely on anything and anyone but you to provide for them. And I definitely am not going to lie, cheat, and steal for provision, because you're really bigger than that. And most of you guys have heard before that it was me actually telling the truth. When I refused to lie anymore, I was telling the truth, that I wind up getting access to all of these little loopholes, like, bringing in income. I was able to bring in upwards of $12,000 a semester. And I say upwards because when I found out that I didn't have to come out of school, when I found out that the monies that I got from school wasn't counted as income, I said I'm never coming out of school. So I was a professional student for 12 years. However, it was that, and then owning my own business and understanding that I can still own my own business and get food stamps and Medicaid and things like that. And that they counted business income different than they counted employment income. And so, allow me to frame this conversation as to why I think it's important that we have a conversation with the midwives, which are the people, the staff, the dedicated staff behind the doors of public housing. Now, I also know that most of you guys don't know that I used to also be a commissioner of a housing authority. So I was the one in the policy making seat. I chaired the housing authority at that. So I got an opportunity to, have some influence over how the housing authority appropriated its contracts, or, making sure minorities were getting access to the contracts, because they weren't. But then I also got an opportunity to work in a housing authority. And it was working in the housing authority that I had to revamp my whole schedule, because actually I learned a culture. There's a culture behind the 4 walls, or behind the brick walls of public housing. And it is very, very hard to navigate and be successful in resident services. And so, yes, resident services. And remember when I said, don't nobody care about the poor. Nobody, nobody is really, listening to the poor. I mean, that's a real thing. And even in public housing, resident services themselves they're not even considered in many housing authorities. I won't say all housing authorities, but they're really not even considered, like, I'm not going to say a legitimate part of the agency, but they're like the stepchildren. They're like, oh, that's resident services. Oh, that's them over there. Oh, any kind of crisis, any kind of intervention, any kind of, like, the drama, the mental health, the stuff that happens in the units. Oh, co-resident services. But I don't think the housing authorities, from the leadership down, from the commissioners to the executive directors, I don't think they really understand how connected resident services is to the lifeline, to the blood of the agency. And so we have a guest speaker here. Her name is Rhonda Lattimore. She's from the Jacksonville Housing Authority. She'll be joining us a little later to kind of share what she does, because I've been in this game for a minute, at least a decade. And in that decade, I have seen from the worst to the best. And she represents a few of the best. And notice I said a few, because there really are just a few out there that's really doing a hell of a job, or a heaven of a job, or just a great job, an awesome job. However, once I let you know all of the programs that exist in public housing, my question is, then why are we poor? Why are public housing residents still leading the charges, leading the poverty stats, still disproportionately represented in all other systems like mental health, welfare, criminal justice, free lunch? Why are we still there? And Rhonda is going to help us kind of break down the meaning or what these programs really offer. You guys heard a couple of podcasts back, the Shady and Shamwell from, McKinney, Texas. I'm sorry, the Shady. He got 13 kids and he came up. Come on now, he a Black man with a rucker and he got 13 kids. And he came up. So if he was able to come up, that's telling you that we are not utilizing these programs by far the way we should. And so, I mean, he had a very empowering story, but he took advantage of some of the programs. Some of the other men that you heard on the Invisible Black Man, they too took advantage of some of the programs, like the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. Some of you might have heard it, some of you might not have heard it. I do believe that there is an accountability that residents will have, and it should be, because I don't think you should just, and I think this has been part of maybe like the entitlement. I think this is where, sometimes white America or that narrative comes in. Oh, it's an entitlement program. Oh, they're welfare queens. They love welfare. Because here is subsidies given to pay housing and to pay other benefits, subsidized through taxpayers' dollars. So I want you to think that someone is giving us a hand, some might say handout, but I would say it's actually a hand up. It just depends on how you look at it. So someone is paying, because in Africa, in Liberia, they do not have welfare programs like this. There's no such thing as no welfare, no Medicaid, no food stamps. Like, if you cannot go and feed yourself, you will starve. Y'all seen the commercial with Sally Brothers? That is a real thing. I don't even know if that's her name. What's her name? Sally Rutherford's Brothers, whatever. I don't know. What I'm saying is they will literally, you've seen the pictures where they have the baby on their back. They have their tub. I had this awesome picture. She had her baby on her back. She had her whole house was on her head. And she going to the market to make some money. And I promise you, I've always wanted to do like a switch where we flip. We take someone from Africa, bring them here into this housing, and we take someone from this housing, put them in Africa, and I promise you a world of difference will occur. Needless to say, There are programs in public housing that by far residents either don't know, they ain't looking for, they ain't paying attention, and they ain't just residents now. I know that there are a few housing authorities that just don't have any programs. One, there are some housing authorities that don't do the greatest job with telling you that these programs exist and or communicating the full benefits of the programs. There's also some communication barriers like the us versus them. And so anything that they say, we're like contrary to, so we don't really listen with all ears. And so I just say to all residents that I don't know what it will take. However, we are in the era right now. Black, we always should have been there, but this is a different time. The tides have changed. Black people, if you ain't on a come up by now, you don't want to be. And so I'm going to kind of give a highlight over these phenomenal programs. I'm going to just like do one of those little high level 30,000 foot view. Then we're going to ask Rhonda to come in, give us a little background about who she is, what she does. Did I miss anything from the program? So she'll reiterate the programs. And then I'm going to ask her, what do you see there in Jacksonville? Because here's what I know. When we had our contract with DC Housing Authority in Topeka, Kansas, DC Housing Authority is located in the District of Columbia, in one of the world's most resourceful, wealthiest jurisdiction in the whole entire United States of America. Resource rich is what we'll call it. Yet you could travel all the way down to Topeka, Kansas. You got to look for resources with like flashlights in the daytime. But they're there, but they're very far and few. Nowhere to be compared. But I promise you one thing. The state of the residents from DC housing and Topeka housing were exactly the same. And I need that to sink in for a little bit. Resource rich, limited resources, state of mind, the same. Which told us that what we were dealing with when it comes to poverty, this is a systematic, institutionalized, strategic instrument that has done quite a job farther than what you think it has. It is, number one, the fact that I think depression is probably like the one and only, if not the top, number one mental health disorder or diagnoses in public housing. Because of course, some of the living conditions is definitely deplorable, substandard, and it's not even worth the dollar that you might have to pay in rent. However, okay, depression is a real thing. But if we're not getting treated for that depression, then definitely we're not going to access some of these programs. So I do understand that there are some variables that are taking place. However, let's talk about family self-sufficiency. Nowhere in the whole United States of America, plus two, if there was two Americas, nowhere in the whole United States of America do you have a program that says, hey, if you move into public housing and you're not working and your rent is zero, no worries. You join our program. We help you do whatever you need to do. You work on your goals. That could be by purchasing a house, repairing your credit. That can be getting a job, going back to school, whatever it is to help you with upward mobility. The Family Self-Sufficiency team is there to help you. And then they said, and once you get your employment and your rent happens to go up, we're going to take that whole amount or the difference between what you paid when you first came into the program and then what you pay as your rent goes up. And every time your rent goes up and increases because you're making more, we're going to take that money and put it in an escrow account for you for 5 years. They even have an option to renew that program for another 2 years. So you have an option to have your rent escrowed for 7 years. That's number one. I've seen residents graduate with $42,000, $68,000, $38,000. They just, and there's no other plan. There's no prerequisite. There's no contingency that once you get the money, you got to move out. Nope, you can get the money and you can stay. So moving out of housing is never really too many people's plan or objective. That's number one. The second program, which is, I'm going to let Rhonda explain it, is Jobs Plus, which I recently learned. And Rhonda, you're going to have to help me on the Jobs Plus. Jobs Plus, from what I understand, it's like an earned income disallowance, which means an earned income disallowance is a real thing in public housing, where if you haven't been working for a while and now you start working, for the first year, they won't take any of your income. The second year, I believe, is 50%. And then the third year, they start counting your full income. And Rhonda, if I make any mistakes, you can clarify when you come on.
Just let me know when you want to chime in.
Okay. However, with earned income disallowance with Job Plus programs, you could be creative. The housing authorities can be creative and write the programs up. But here again, a earned income disallowance that will allow you to not have your rent counted. Now, I've seen it where a lot of the caseworkers or the case managers, housing specialists, some of them really didn't even know how to calculate it. So again, it's not 100% on the resident, even though it is up to you to understand the policies, the programs that engage or interact and influence and impact your daily lives. The other third program, which is my favorite by far, is like it goes into the holy realms, is called Section 3. Section 3 states, to the greatest extent feasible, anywhere HUD monies is spent, there's a certain percentage of HUD budgets that trigger Section 3, which says, to the greatest extent feasible, wherever HUD monies are spent, training, employment, and contracting opportunities shall be afforded to residents first. Now, it doesn't create a job, but it does say, should there be a job or economic opportunity available, that opportunity must first go to residents. That the whole Section 3 is a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But needless to say, residents still don't know enough about it to even hold the housing authorities accountable. So then you have the Ross program. To me, the Ross is used like a primer. It's a program where they're going to pay someone to help you get your life together. Whether it's mental health, whether it's going back to school, whatever it is, Ross programs are there to help connect residents to services. It could be home ownership. And let's just do a real quick UE. The home ownership. Most people don't even know. You can take your Section 8 voucher and purchase a house with your voucher. So instead of paying your landlord the rent every day forever, it could be paying a mortgage on your house. You could be building equity, which is how you build wealth. At least that's how most white America has built wealth here in the United States. So again, why are we poor? And I don't mean just poor. We're poor here. We broke in our pockets, but we're poor here. So maybe the poverty here in our mind is not necessarily our fault to some degree, because we did come from a whole bunch of atrocities that these sick people, they need love, they need hugs. That has just kind of continuously bestowed upon us. Like, what did we ever do? But there's a correlation between here and your pockets. And so with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Rhonda Lattimore from the Jacksonville Housing Authority in Florida, because they do a spectacular job. She is spectacular. And she's always been one of my favorite staff persons or housing authority professionals. She believes this thing through and through in her heart. And I want her to share with us what, after she introduces, I guess, Rhonda, I'll ask you, based on what you see every single day and anything I said, correct it. Why are we poor in public housing?
Okay, well, thank you, Raquel. How are you?
Oh,
It
it's
is
been a
so
long
good
day.
to see you again.
I know, thank you. I know it's been not that long.
Love the makeup, love the glam, love the glam.
Thank you. And today's regular. I'm just regular. I was like, oh God, I don't feel like doing a whole bunch. So
You look great. Well, congratulations on your podcast. I think this is a great event. And thank you for having me this evening.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gents, my name is Rhonda Lattimore. I am the Director of Resident Services here at the Jacksonville Housing Authority here in Jacksonville, Florida. I've been with the agency for 6 years. However, my career primarily have been in social services for the past 20 years. However, I initially went to school to become a lawyer. So I have my law degree. And I did go to law school. And, it's interesting because you can invest in something that you truly believe in your heart. And then sometimes your dream and the experience doesn't always equate. Um, but I found social services, or social services found me. And I have been working for the past 20 plus years in serving others and assisting them in reaching their goals, period. I have worked with thousands of people in my career. And here at the Jacksonville Housing Authority, we're the second largest housing authority in Florida. We serve approximately 11 plus thousand families, which equate to about 30 to 40,000 individuals. Children, mom and dads. Okay. So, I was listening to Raquel and she really described the programs really well. There are so many opportunities on the social services side of housing authorities. It is like a best kept secret.
Yeah.
So what happens is that people get their voucher or they get their keys to their unit in public housing and they forget about everything else because they were on a waiting list and they were on the waiting list for years. And so people just want to get to their residential space and they basically want to be left alone for a moment, which is okay. I mean, if you waited for something for 4 or 5 years, you want to just enjoy that moment. But what happens is that time goes by, years go by, your children your children get older and they're going to school, and next thing you know, you're no longer 28 years old. You're now 38 years old. And now the kids are in junior high school and high school, and they start asking questions. And mom, what are you doing? Dad, what are you doing? So all of a sudden, you're having your family, your children, start assessing what you're doing. And so what I have found in my tenure and working with families is that a light bulb goes on. And some of you can attest to this, I'm not sure. Some of you may be younger, but it appears that around the age of 38, 35 to 38 are magical years for residents in public housing. The reason why I say that is by the age of 35, you have assessed your life, your goals, your direction, where you've been, and your children will start asking questions about your own journey, your goals, your dreams. Dad, why aren't you doing this? Mom, why aren't you doing that? Mom, I think you do great here. Mom, why don't you have your own salon? Mom, what? So what happens is your children is beginning to assess what you're doing, which means you start assessing yourself. And then for some reason, we start getting calls. But the opportunities were there from the very beginning. So like Raquel said, there's the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. There's the Ross program. There's the Jobs Plus program. There's Section 3 program. But all those programs are designed to support your goals to eventually moving up and out of housing. That's the part of the mission that many people aren't aware of, is public housing authorities are more than just providing safe, clean, decent, affordable housing for low-income families. There's a section in the mission, which is what I'm here for, and working with a team of about 15 case managers, our goal is to assist and to help you find your interests, assist with your educational, vocational training, help you find your goals or reestablish your goals, and get you really a path to self-sufficiency, which is basically finding your own way in the world independently, financially.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
I mean,
through.
you said something interesting, which I never knew. So you really got this thing down to a science. The light bulb goes off between 35 and 38 because the children begin asking them parents, "Hey, mom, what's up? What you doing? You ain't tired of sitting here on the couch?" Not saying that they are, but I think maybe are the children looking for some type of model or pathway or direction, and if the parents can't give it to them, what does that leave the children? And let me ask you this question: if they're coming in at 35 to 38, what are we doing to capture the kids, the teenagers? Are there, like, it used to be youth bill was a thing, but then
Yes,
I don't know what
youth bill
happened.
is still out there. We actually have several programs for our youth. We have a virtual mentoring tutoring program. We have computer labs to assist our kids with their homework. We have virtual homework assistance. We have a prep scholarship program that assists kids from 7th grade all the way through high school. And there is some opportunity to receive full 4-year scholarships at one of the top colleges and universities here in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few programs for our families, for our youth. But what we find is that we really try to start with the parents, because many times we are trying to seek permission, consent, and buy-in from the parents. And so we can do different things with the kids, but ultimately it is mom or dad or both who is going to have to say, yes, my child can participate in this program or not. So, yeah, we have quite a few programs to support our children and our youth. Matter of fact, just this past year, 2 of our high school graduates received a full 4-year scholarship to the University of North Florida, full tuition, room and board, plus a laptop.
Wow.
And support.
Now, let me ask you this. Is it true? Because as you're talking, I mean, I know the impact that you have on families. And my first question, or the thing that's coming to my head is, Jacksonville wouldn't be able to serve all their families anyway. Or most housing authorities really couldn't. Let's just say, something crazy happened, like Trump got elected again. And, he decides he wants to put term limits on public housing. And able-bodied families had 10 years or 5 years to move out. Would we be able to handle that demand?
Well, put it like this. They've talked about term limits on the leases. It's been a discussion. There actually have been some experiments with smaller housing authorities regarding that. The problem is the first generation who have to deal with the term limits. Those were the ones where homeless rate would probably skyrocket.
Now, when you say first generation, what do you mean
exactly?
The
first generation, if there is ever a term limit on the lease for public housing, say it's 5 years, that first generation that would have to move in 5 years, that would probably be one of the heaviest level of homelessness in the country. Because they are probably the least equipped to make that transition immediately. And we think 5 years is a long time, but honestly, for 5 years, Raquel, is a blink.
It's a blink. That's why I said 10. I'm an advocate for 10, or at least
10.
Yeah, because you got to have to take 5 for the family self-sufficiency program by itself. I mean, you need a good 10 needs.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
5 to 7, but around 10. Correct.
It is,
Correct.
I mean, because then at 10, I could have gone to school. I could have got a master's degree. I could have opened a small business and grew it. I could have done the FSS and moved on. You know what I'm saying? Like 10 is because, yeah, I think. But
I
I mean,
would say that they might start with something like 10, and then after the first generation of
yeah.
residents that leave, then they may reduce it to 7.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel whoever comes into, I don't even know if it's a Republican or Democratic, play, but I don't think people understand. And first, I don't think people understand that when it comes to public housing is America's pretty much largest affordable housing stock. And we don't do a good job with recycling. That's why people are on the wait list forever, 15 years,
Correct.
20 years on a waiting list. So
Correct.
we have land, yes, but are you going to take that land and develop more of the same? No, they're not building more type public housing that you see right now.
No, HUD wants to get out of the real estate business.
Yeah. And they kept saying that for a long time, for years,
Yes.
10, 15 years I've been hearing that. And I was like, huh? But now that
it's happening right now.
It's here right now.
It's here right now.
It's here right now. So RAD development, private developers are coming in, owning up federal property. So you already know that if a private developer can come and own a piece of federal property and manage it like real estate property managers, HUD is definitely getting out of that game altogether.
Correct. But I want your listeners to know that there's a lot of financial incentives in these programs. There's quite a bit of support in these programs. And
we shouldn't be poor.
Residents just need to pause for a moment and do some self-evaluation. And we all do.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do it, every quarter, every 3 months or so.
So let me ask you this. Did you know we can't see you? Your camera's not on. Did you do that?
I don't know why the camera's not up. I have a camera, but it's not up.
Okay.
You would have to release it because you released the mic. That came up, but I'm not sure why the camera didn't come up.
You know what? I just really got to get this technology stuff. I mean, geez whiz. If that is something that I am responsible for, okay, I'll fix that. So I was going to ask you, so let me ask you this question. If we know on a large level, we got the programs, they work. They absolutely work. You got the people, they don't know about the programs, they don't engage. You hit it spot on when you said when they move in, they've been on a waiting list for 15 years. Some people have been homeless for a long time. They trying to just get their mind right. Like woosah for a second. But that second is like a long, elongated 10-year pause sometimes. Do you think that we're missing a program component? Is there some type of program that we actually need to help residents better engage? Because if every resident decided, or even 50% of residents right now that were able-bodied, non-elderly, non-disabled, decided that they're going to get their good foot on, I don't even think the housing authorities had enough bandwidth or capacity to really serve them, in excellence. And so on some parts, some housing authorities got it real good because they could just do this little piss poor level of performance, get a nice little paycheck, and soon as activities start ramping up, it's like, it's too much happening. I know that's not the case in Jacksonville, but I mean, based on where
I have a resolution. I do have a resolution. I think the key is when I think everyone in public housing should be assigned a case manager or is enrolled in some type of social services program as part of the lease when they sign their lease. Because you're capturing their attention, you have a captive audience right there. And so when people are signing their lease and they're getting their keys, then there should be something at that point where they hear immediately about the program, and then they are directed to call this number, or we are notified of the new resident or tenant, and we would reach out to them directly.
Absolutely.
That is a system that is doable. I'm not sure why housing authorities across the country don't do it. Maybe some do. But that is one of many opportunities to engage.
Do you guys do that?
With marketing? We do. And what I will say, Raquel, is that sometimes the system is as good as the players. And so if you have a team of property managers that are fully vested in the success of their residents, they are gung-ho. You're going to also have housing counselors, other property managers that they're focusing on their role and responsibilities in terms of making sure that a person is fully leased up and is getting their unit. They have the key, they do the walkthrough, and they're moving in. It's something that we have to do a better job in, not just Jacksonville Housing Authority, but I think across the country, in terms of how we guide our residents through, how do we assist them with navigating this process.
That's because they do. That's what I was talking about, how it's like the stepchild, because when I worked at the housing authority, there was no connection between lease up and or even recertifications and us. And I'm thinking, and so I had to go and equate and meet all of the lease up, intake specialists. I made sure I put out flyers in their office. I had to explain to them what the programs were like so that they can give the client a quick overview. Prior to me coming to the agency, that was never done. And that's how we were able to double the size of the FSS program, by simply making sure we reached out to these individuals. And I think there was this notion that, we're all the housing authority, everybody knows. No, they don't. No, people know their stuff. And probably that's it.
That's right. I would suggest to your listeners and tell their neighbors, when you have time, the next time you pay your rent, ask your property manager who's the contact for resident services you want to find out about services and the programs that are available. Period. And they will give you that person's name, phone number, email address, but they will guide you to that person. It's give and take. It's like, agencies and organizations have to do a better job with the marketing, the outreach, but at the same time, residents that tap into it, it's amazing the growth and the success of some of our participants in the programs. In 2019, the Jacksonville Housing Authority, the FSS program, dispersed over $200,000. Listen to me, listeners, $200,000 to 36 graduates.
That's from your housing authority?
Yes.
Whoa. Wow. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That comes out to about 5,000 or so per person. But average.
We had 36 graduates from the FSS program, and we paid out over $200,000 to the 36 graduates. Not all 36 got 5,000. Some, we had a graduate that had 29,000. We had a graduate that had 4,000. We had a graduate that had 10,000. In addition to that, in the FSS program, eight of our participants purchased homes. Some had homes built from the ground up. Some purchased existing homes, but we had 8 homeowners. These are Section 8 participants that was able to take their Section 8 voucher and convert it into a mortgage subsidy, and was able to use that subsidy as paying their mortgage.
Come on now. That's why Jacksonville is a winner. to me because I know right now housing authorities that do not even participate in the homeownership program for no reason. It's not like it's a grant or anything. It's not like it's some special thing. It's just do it, for crying out loud.
Absolutely. We have public housing residents that go from public housing into home ownership because they work with dedicated, caring case managers that guides them through the process. In addition to them getting the savings account you call escrow, just it's easy to just call it a savings account so people understand it. So here you go. You're working, a percentage of your earnings is going in the savings account up to 5 years, and your case manager assisting you with home ownership. And we had a young lady, one case in point, real quick. We had a young lady last year. She was in public housing, 3 children, 39 years old. She started out, basically entry-level position, and she became a supervisor of one of her departments. So her income shot up. After 5 years, okay, she then became a homeowner. We sat her down and we issued her a check of $9,000 after closing. After she purchased her house, we issued her a check for $9,000. She was so scared. She thought someone was going to come in the room and take her away. She said, "Do I have to pay this back?" We're like, "No, you earned this. This is an incentive."
Wow.
So the stories are phenomenal. The participants are phenomenal. There are residents, they realize they are gifted in so many different ways. Next thing you know, the person that does hair, she now has a braiding business, and she is now able to charge, instead of braiding for a friend for like $20. Now the retail market for her braids is 200, 300, 400, 500 and beyond, because the interest in hair design and braids are actually very popular.
Naturally.
So it's amazing how people find their gifts when they tap into these programs as well. Yeah. So
let me ask you this.
It's just a basic example. But
most people don't know.
I don't want anyone to think that I'm just pigeonholing, because I'm not.
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I don't want anyone to think I'm pigeonholing in terms of braiding hair, but it's just a basic example.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say this, that, Rhonda Lattimore is the director of resident services. So she hires staff. And I know the listeners on the webinar, those listening, you're probably saying, that don't sound like my resident services. You can't even get resident services on a phone in some of these stories.
That could be a true statement. I'm not gonna. Customer service. We all can definitely improve on customer service. But anyway, Raquel.
So, what do you look for when hiring a resident services staff? And I say this to say, especially in DC, that's where we're headquartered. DC is going through a major redevelopment plan. A lot of housing authorities are going through a redevelopment plan, and HUD is approving Section 8 vouchers for your relocation. Before you go, check the housing authority that you go into. Don't just be looking for whether or not somebody in that area is going to take your voucher. Because yes, you can't even move into a jurisdiction unless an entity will take on, absorb, or choose to build that voucher out. However, you want to make sure that they have programs like what Jacksonville has. They have programs for your kids, your youth, for you, whether it's Section 3, Jobs Plus, FSS, home ownership. Do not move into a jurisdiction that has no programs, and find out how engaged they are. What is the outcomes? What are the impacts that they're having on families? Just like it's looking for a job, this is the place you're going to call home. This is the place that you have the ability to come up and out. So I was going to ask Rhonda before we, close out, what are some of the qualities that a great resident services staff person has to have before you hire them?
I would tell you, Raquel, and I would tell your listeners, it's very, very basic.
Hmm.
Whoever is working with you have to be authentic
Mm-hmm.
in their care and supporting your goals. They have to care about you and your goals. That's their job. Their job is to care. Now, what I tell you is some people want jobs and they just want to do the job without care. Well, those people don't last long in social services.
Mm-hmm.
Most social services professionals, the ones that are authentic and truly care, they're the ones that are in it for pretty much their whole career, like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I could have grinded out. Okay. I could have grinded out and got into the legal field.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got into social services, I had to make a conscious decision.
Wow.
And I made that decision. And once I realized that I have a gift in helping people reach their goals, just like I reached some of my goals,
Mm-hmm.
I was hooked.
Wow.
And so this is where I've been. So I will tell you, listeners, if you contact anyone in your housing authority from the from resident services, spend some quality time. If you get a feeling that this person does not care and they're going through the motion, then you'll know and you can ask for, hey, is there someone else I can speak to in your department or your program? I'm serious. You really want someone who just basically care. And I know that sounds so basic, but
Like,
it's rich. It's rich. It's rich. It's rich. It's
like, of
rich.
course they should care. But now let me ask you this question, because I've seen this too. And I have resident services staff that probably they were afraid to come on simply because they didn't want to really go on record saying certain things. But I know of agencies that are probably more in rural areas, run by mostly a majority Caucasian individuals, and the population is African American, and they are feel like it's a slave plantation. Like it's like, you better not say nothing on the kingdom, on the plantation. Don't even open your mouth. What hope could we give to residents, even in those areas where nobody seems like they care? Because there are places like that,
If
Ron.
no one seems like they care, then you need to start reaching outside of the public housing authority and really seeing what's in your community, because it does not matter where you live.
True.
There is a industry of social service professionals that's available to help you move forward in your goals. It is a bureaucracy out there. It is a lot of navigating. But let me tell you, if you can put some calls in and you hear a person who's compassionate and she's trying or he's trying to move you forward to the next person who can help you, you found someone that you want to stay connected to.
Mm-hmm.
And you call that person again. I don't care which organization it's from. I do not care which organization, because once you find a caring professional, they're going to give you names, organizations, telephone numbers to contact. And you contact those people. Mm-hmm. And they're only going to send you to people that is going to help move you forward in your goals. They're not going to send you to deadbeat anybody. Yeah. So you got to put those calls in. You got to ask questions. Don't be afraid. Now, some people may feel like, okay, well, I've heard it said, Raquel, that there is a business calculation to maintaining zero rent. Is that a business calculation? Is that something that people decide that?
Yeah.
They make a business calculation is in their best interest not to pursue employment, not to pursue education, not to pursue any goals, and just pay zero rent. It's sure how far that takes you. Yes, you may maintain a unit. You may maintain your unit and you may have some benefits, but it leaves a void. It
Yeah,
leaves a
of
void.
course it does. And I think, and I have told people, I have heard all the stories. I mean, when it's time for recertification, some residents are going to the doctor's office and getting a little, you know, mental health clearance check that they need to either not work or they need to be in a unit with someone else because they're crazy. Some people will straight out bark like dogs
Yes.
and they fake a disability, and that's so sick that you would even allow yourself to be in that type of form just for a subsidy of housing because you don't want to put your best foot forward and be the best person you could be. I thought that's probably the most horrific story I've ever heard. When she told me that, I didn't even know what to say or do. um and I was like, you bark like a dog, and then here I go, a big dog or a little dog, you know? I
Well,
just
I
was,
tell you what,
I thought of Eddie Murphy's Coming to America, like bark like a dog, woof, woof, you know,
I
a
would,
big dog. And
I
that's
would
the
think.
only thing I could think about. I couldn't even, I was done for the rest of the week. I don't even think I could. I was
But let me
done.
tell everyone, the listeners on this podcast, you are in the right place. Raquel Williams is a great contact, and the fact that you're even on this call, I don't care if it's 1 or 100 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
You made a decision. There's something within you where you're saying, you know what, I want to pursue this, I want to pursue that, I want to check out this podcast. That's what you have to do. You have to seek out people, knowledge, information, and it will start making you think more, feel more, react more, and do more. And the more you do, the more you're going to earn, not just financially, but emotionally, intellectually, mature wise. There's so many opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to grow into who you are. And you may not even know who that person is going to be yet.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in being a doctor and you're 30 years old, you know what? You still can be a doctor.
Amen.
Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And I know sometimes we get caught up in these cliches and it sounds so easy and it make it sound so easy. But let me tell you, if you can just connect with a couple of people who can give you some solid information and get you to the next point, it's like a connect the dot.
Mm-hmm.
Get you to the next point. Well, that next person that you connect with is going to get you to the next point, and so on and so forth until you have your goal plan drawn.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask Raquel questions.
Reach
Say,
out.
hey, I'm at this housing authority. Who should I contact? You know what? Every housing authority is listed in Google across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Google resident services for your housing authority. It's going to list the name of the director, the manager, the coordinator. You know, everything truly is at your fingertips. So I am really impressed with everyone that's on this podcast.
Yeah.
I am just excited to have been on. Thank you, Raquel. You're doing a fabulous job. You really are. I've known Raquel now I've been like her fan for the last 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know. I remember coming to your housing authority doing my little. I don't
they
even know
weren't
what I
ready
was
for
doing
you.
there.
They weren't ready for you.
Yeah, doing my little presentations with my doll babies, and
Yeah,
you know
the
we were just
books and everything. Sometimes people just aren't ready, but when you are ready, step out in faith. And we are here. We are real. And so if you need any type of support, numbers, who to get in contact with, we can get that for you.
motivation, inspiration.
Right.
We got that here. Like time waits for no one. So I just ask you guys to, because I know it is hard, just keeping focus, because sometimes people do look like, okay, I'm 38. Oh my God, where did my life go? And then you're in this like race against yourself, or you're comparing yourself to someone else. And as if you'll never get somewhere, or you'll never be where you need to be at a certain time. And it's like, enjoy the journey. You want to be alive in the next 10 years. If it takes 10 years, be committed to it. And I remember back then when I was starting my journey, I just said, I don't care if it takes me 20 years. It has to get done. And it has taken 20 years. And I look back at the time, my oldest is now 21. And I'm like, what? It is 20 years. I'm glad I started the journey then than trying to start it now. But everybody's in a different place. You got to start it now. You got to start it now. Every day you delay is a day you just will be further from where you want to be. And so thank you guys. Thank you, Rhonda, for coming out.
You are so welcome. And listeners, one more message, a tip for the night.
Got it.
Be self-forgiving.
True.
Be self-forgiving.
That's good.
It's okay. Be self-forgiving.
Be self-forgiving. I put that on my notes right there. Be self-forgiving.
All right, very good. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for that. And shout out to the Jacksonville Housing Authority. I know they're looking for a new executive director down there. I pray you guys get somebody that just loves people and the people they serve. Shout out to the resident services staff in Jacksonville. You guys are doing a great job. To everybody in Jacksonville, dream work makes the team work. And I know Rhonda is not a one-woman show. She has an awesome team behind her.
Awesome team. Awesome team. Absolutely.
Thank you for doing what you do. I love it because it
Thank
makes
you.
credibility to what I stand for and what I promote. And so thank you for being one of those out there just doing it. I mean, like for real, for real.
And you're doing it. You are doing it. And you still look 25.
How old? 25? 25? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll take that. So you guys, thank you guys for listening. We have no questions. Usually I open it up, but I asked everybody if they had any questions. If you guys have any questions for Miss Lattimore, this would be the time to ask. And if not, then we're going to, part ways and see you guys next week at the same time, same place. And of course, yep, we do have a question. Hold on. Let's see, hey, Misha. Oh. Hey, Misha, can you hear me? Unmute your phone. Okay, there you go. You have a question? Go ahead.
Good evening. I always have a question.
That's right, and that's good. You should.
Miss Lattimore, you're awesome, and I am so appreciative of the work that you all are doing in Jacksonville, Florida.
Thank you.
I can't say the same here where I am.
I know you was about to say I know. So
we have done some of the very things that you have said do when it comes to our housing authority.
Yes.
As far as reaching out to other people, other places, and things like that, because we are not satisfied with the housing authority where I am. So what would you suggest if we can't get, like, so for instance, we've asked the resident services here if they could just give us a mission statement. We haven't gotten that as of yet. We've
on the website.
Well, it's not there. Not for resident services, for the overall housing authority, yes. Okay. But what would you suggest for us to do? What would be our next step, seeing though we have made different calls and reached out to other people and places outside of the housing authority? We've reached out to HUD, we've reached out to a number of people and places, but we haven't been able to get the help that we are desiring to get some of these very things that you mentioned.
Are you part of the resident council? Are you a council president or officer?
I was a part of the council. However, I resigned. But once I have some other things coming up. So my goal is to run for president of the resident council this year. And I know I probably can't do some things until then.
Well, there's a few things you can do. I'm not sure. Have you tried to reach out to leadership at the housing authority, like the president or the CEO?
I think we have. Say it again, Raquel.
I mean, she has reached out in various capacities. It's just like it's the culture. The culture is just different. I mean, you guys still serve alive. You guys are serving 40,000 families. You would still be, I know DCHA is like 65,000 residents. So that's not like a big difference. Um, so y'all would probably be comparable in size.
We would be. They're a little. I'm not sure which housing authority, but they're definitely a little larger, which means that they should have a sizable resident services department.
They have a
I
huge
have a
resident
department.
services. Huge.
I'm sorry.
I said they have a huge resident services department, and it's just
Wow.
unbelievable.
That's really disappointing to hear. Only other thing that I can think of is actually doing some letter writing campaign with local officials like city council or the mayor. Our housing authority have a very strong relationship with the mayor's office and city council. And so we are always having to respond to the needs of the community. And so we're not in a silo. We're in a community. And so your housing authority is probably probably the largest landlord in your county.
Yeah.
Which means that they touch everything throughout that county. So there's probably a strong relationship with city council, with the mayor's office. And so when you kind of ramp it up to that level and you get on a writing campaign, it's an old saying, I don't like it, but they said the squeaky wheel gets the oil. But, that person who knows how to take it to the next level, if you can get some buy-in from the city or the city council, they'll be calling you. They'll be trying to see whatever they can do to try to connect with you. And it shouldn't have to be that way. But unfortunately, it is like that way. And, there's, people say, oh, this is not fair. That's not fair. But no one said life was fair. And so two housing authorities are not equal. You have low performing housing authorities, you have high performing housing authorities. It's just like anything else, so you have to take your power where it's at. The power of the pen is very important, Ms. Misha, is very important. And Ms. Raquel, she's a huge advocate for residents. Let Raquel has a whole machine behind her.
Like I was going to tell her that Anita Bond's office, like the housing committee, for sure. But one of the programs that I had left off when we were talking about Section 3 Job Plus, one of the most powerful instruments in the housing authority is the resident council. And it's that resident advisory board that is covered and protected by federal statute. And so, yes, you do one hand, with the left hand, you're at Anita Bond's office, making sure that because right now with the Housing Authority's transformation plan, the accountability is with the city council's housing committee. And so letting them know that, hey, look at the email trail. They are not responsive to the needs of residents, because the truth of the matter is some residents don't even have access to technology to write to the city council. Some of them don't really know when the meetings are, so not everybody engages on the same level. And so you being a leader, if you're in your community, and I would voluntarily put myself on the resident advisory board. I wouldn't even wait until I was appointed or elected as president of my resident council. If I have a lease here, I'm coming and I see that the resident advisory board is not meeting, like the citywide jurisdiction board is not meeting, I'm going to step in. I'm going to the chair. I'm going to see how I can help her. And I'm calling the meetings and I'm going to be present. And I'm going to make sure that whatever influence I can yield through this instrument called resident councils, resident advisory boards, I'm going to do just that. And they will listen.
Yeah, you have to where's your power where you have it, and build upon that. So I would say don't necessarily look inward, look outward, Ms. Misha. and go for it. I mean, you sound like you have the tenacity, the drive, the passion, and you are a leader. And don't forget that. So it only takes a few key residents to be instrumental in movement for the others. Okay, you know, the voice can come from a few, or it can come from many.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, that's real. And she is an awesome leader. Her, Tommy, they've been working really hard. They've been patient. And, at the end of the day, I don't like that we get treated like this. But I have a quote. It says, "What you do to the least of them, you do unto me." That's a scripture that I believe that how we treat the poor, how we treat the least of them, how we treat those with limited resources or under resourced, how we treat those that just are, in these situations where they're looking and asking, and when you ignore them, that's just not a good look. It's just not a good look. It's not service. And I believe the tides are turning where people like Rhonda Lattimore and her agency that she works for, that cream rises to the top. The same with Can I Live and our leadership, and even you guys on the phone, the leadership that you are in your current community. Stay authentic, stay true, keep the standard very high. The cream rises to the top, and before you know it, people that used to do things of that old nasty way, that will no longer be a thing. Because I believe as America, we're coming to a place where we are looking for a greater standard, something better than what we've been doing. And so I implore you guys to raise the bar, raise the standard, live the standard. And if you got to be there for a little while by yourself, that's fine. But just keep it high. Alrighty. So thank you guys again. It is 8:15. We are a little bit over, but it was a good show all the time. Good content. Thank you, Rhonda, for joining us. Thank you, Misha.
Thank you, Raquel. You're
welcome.
welcome.
Thank you, all of you guys, listeners, for being here. Tune in next week. Don't know what we're talking about, but we'll be talking about something good. Make sure you like us on Facebook and like us on YouTube and Instagram and all of those social media channels. Share it with your network. Share it with your friends. But whatever you do, just join us next week. 7 o'clock, Tuesday night, the Can I Live podcast. Talk to you guys later. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.